Hey there, my name's Danny Leibrandt, and you are listening to The Local Marketeer, where we host local marketing experts every week. Today, I am with Gyi Tsakalakis. It's kind of a tough name to pronounce. I hope I got that right.
Well,
Was
it's
that good?
Gyi, Danny, but it's
Gyi.
all good.
I'm sorry.
That's
I got it
okay.
right maybe 2 times we were talking. So
You did.
Gyi. Okay, Gyi Tsakalakis.
Like
Okay,
the
or
butter or
Tsakalakis.
the karate jacket or the hockey player.
Okay. Okay. My bad.
It's all
Anyways.
good.
Gyi is a local marketing expert. He started AttorneySync, which is a digital marketing agency for attorneys and lawyers over 15 years ago, about 17 years ago. So he's been super big in the space. He is actually on the local search ranking factors blog, which is what White Spark releases every year or two. And all of the top local SEOs and top people in local marketing are involved in that blog. It's a really big deal. So he told me that a little bit earlier. I was like, wow, dude, that is awesome, because Darren Shaw is like, obviously one of the top guys in local SEO. He only has the top people on there. So that's actually a huge honor to be on there. And I'd love to be on there one day. So that's super awesome. He's also been running his podcast, Lunch Hour Lawyer Marketing, I believe.
Lunch Hour Legal Marketing, but
legal marketing. I'm sorry. There's a lot of things.
I'm sure it comes up if you search for lawyer marketing.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Lunch Hour Legal Marketing. He's been running that for 7 years. He also has another podcast that I think he's going to start back up, and we can talk about a little bit, called Clienting. So Gyi has been a super prominent figure in the local marketing space as a whole, particularly for lawyers. And yeah, I'm super excited to interview him and learn all about him.
Danny, thanks so much for having me. Great to be here.
Of course, man. So let's get into the beginning of your journey, and maybe even before AttorneySync. What were you doing before AttorneySync?
So when I started out actually as a trial lawyer myself for a very brief period of time. My educational background started out in computer science. This is like the late 90s, to date myself here. And I just realized like hardcore coding lifestyle wasn't for me. Pivoted to philosophy major. Decided not to go into academia, and so went to law school. Loved practicing law. I did that for a very brief period of time, but the genesis of AttorneySync was talking to other lawyers at the time about like, what are you doing to grow business, specifically with respect to the internet. And a lot of it was like, a lot of the response was people just don't use the internet to hire lawyers like us. And that sentiment was, and it still comes up even today, but it's a lot less than it was, 17 years ago. So finally left practice in 2007 and founded the business in 2008 and been doing that ever since. And so that's kind of the story. But it was really kind of like this can't be right. People are using the internet to hire lawyers and get referrals and all that kind of stuff. And fortunately, we came down on the right side of history on that one.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me about the first few years of AttorneySync. Was it easy sailing, or was it a little difficult?
Very difficult. It was painfully difficult. And if there are any entrepreneurs who are getting started, it's hard. I mean, I was there. I was working in my tiny studio apartment. My business partner and I, we still laugh about those days. Fortunately, we can laugh about them. But, the stats are anti small businesses succeeding. And in fact, we actually started out as a lead generation company. There was a company called Total Attorneys at the time. They were like the national leader in lead generation for lawyers. There was a question of whether lawyers could even pay per lead. We were tiny. We were like, we can't fight this fight. And so we pivoted to the agency model. But it was a roller coaster ride. And that part of me too, because people ask me, why did you leave the practice of law? I'm excited. I get excited about solving problems and working in that kind of environment. And so even though it was like terrifying, it was super interesting and exciting every day. And it still is, and being in local marketing, like it's exciting. Like there's always new challenges, platforms change, search changes. So it's a space that if you're interested in problem solving in a fast moving industry, marketing and local marketing might be for you.
Yeah. I agree 100%, especially now. I mean, number one, there's such a big opportunity in local marketing. I think local businesses are totally behind as a whole versus, e-commerce, SaaS companies, all these different kinds of companies. And yeah, marketing as a whole, it's so exciting with all the new things and AI and, what's the latest new Google update. So yeah, it is really exciting. And I'd also like to pick on a quick nugget from that initial part of your journey is that you started out as an attorney, so you knew the space really well. And I think that's something to kind of note as someone who might be thinking about starting an agency or even freelancing, is you should go into an industry that you already know about. So if you were like a flooring guy, if you were like a flooring tech or like a pest control tech, then it makes sense to then either start that company or start that agency. I think you should have some kind of industry expertise or at least experience, because that gives you a leg up on everyone else, right?
Man, it helps so much. And I will, for listeners, if they're not familiar with David C. Baker, he wrote a book called The Business of Expertise, and he runs this site called, he just rebranded, I think it's Punctuation now, but he talks about this in the context of positioning. And you know this already because you have a very well positioned business. Uh, it's much easier and much more effective to market in a vertical specific agency. So pick one category and go deep on that category than it is to be like, hey, we're going to be everything to everybody. Your message gets diluted. You're not going to deliver the same value because you don't know that industry as well. Maybe you pick horizontal positioning. That would be like picking like, well, we're just going to focus on search, but across categories. But to me, I think one of the biggest learnings and things that we've benefited from is that we were very specific. Like we just do digital for lawyers, and that both vertical and horizontal positioning has been a huge leg up in terms of our growth and our ability to deliver results for clients.
Definitely. Awesome. And can you speak on like what exactly you do in terms of digital marketing? Is it SEO, Google Ads? What exactly is it?
Pretty much if it's online, we do it. And I'll kind of give you a breakdown of how our agency's built. We have account directors that they're really like this. They set the strategy. So, when we do intake with a firm, and firms come to us with all sorts of different needs. Some are like, I've been listening to the podcast and I haven't really done anything online. I want to get started. Well, that's a much different campaign and marketing blueprint than somebody's like, look, I've been around for the last 30 years. We've invested heavily in digital, but we're not seeing the kind of traction that we want to see, and we're not outpacing some of our competitors. That's a much different plan. And so I say that because, we'll partner with other experts, especially when it comes to like video production. We're a distributed team, but if we've got a client that's in a local market, people on the ground, partners on the ground in those markets make a big difference. Partnering with local organizations, partnering with local journalists. When you're a local marketer, like you've got to think local. I tell people all the time, I'm like, the best tool in your arsenal from a digital marketing standpoint for local is Google Maps. Go find all the businesses and organizations in your clients' local communities and start finding ways to build partnerships with them. It makes all the difference in terms of link building, in terms of PR, in terms of co-marketing partnerships, event marketing, all that stuff. The local stuff that's the key cornerstone for local businesses.
I agree 100%. I really couldn't agree more. Most people are trying to buy super high DR links or, something crazy, getting on like a ton of news. What is it? Like all kinds of PBNs and stuff. Really, what I've seen work best, and what I've talked to most of the industry experts, and all of them agree, is that you want to start local. Do some local PR. Get connected with the local companies. Do like a charity event that's local. Like get connected with the local baseball team. All of these small things that builds the local relevance with Google, right?
Absolutely. It's funny. We were talking the pre-show. You've talked to Greg Gifford, and I don't know if you've had an opportunity to talk to Joy Hawkins, Sterling's guy,
Yeah.
but we were on a panel a couple of years ago, and we kept getting all these questions about how do I get these high domain authority links, and should I be obsessing about follow versus no follow links and all this stuff? And I'm like, all three of us agreed. We're like, forget about, you can throw all those metrics out the window when it comes to local. Focus on local. Another thing that's really become even more and more important now is focusing on delivering great experiences, because those reviews make all the difference in the world. If you can't, you can rank even without reviews. It's hard, but the issue is, even if you rank, no one's going to call you, because they're going to look at the other competitors in the pack and say, there's all these other businesses that have so many more reviews, and they're just not going to trust you the same way. And so, local, great experiences, follow up, and as I think you mentioned right at the outset, a lot of small business owners, they're focused on doing the work. Like they're not focused on all this other stuff. And so, sometimes, you call it e-myth or whatever you want, but you got to work on your business. You got to look at like, what's it like when somebody calls your business? What's it like when somebody tries to contact you? Are they having a great experience? Because people will leave bad reviews before they even hire you. They'll say, didn't answer the phone. In legal, we talk about this all the time. Didn't follow up, didn't respond to my questions. Like that's the stuff that's so key in local.
Yeah, the way I like to think about it is that reviews make everything else easier. It makes more people come to your business. It's a higher conversion rate. People stay longer. It makes everything else easier. I feel like I almost talk about reviews like every podcast at this point, but it is so worth it. Like anyone who is not going super hard on reviews, and by the way, you don't even need an agency to implement some kind of review strategy. You
That's
can
right.
do that all in house. And that's something that you guys do. It's not like you hire an agency and then they buy a ton of reviews for you. You should be generating super high quality, real reviews.
100%. And in legal, it is a disaster. And everybody listening to this, unfortunately, the powers that be, Google, the FTC, state AG's offices, like they're just not keeping up. It's a massive problem. I'm hopeful, and like one of my 2025 crystal ball hopes, not so much a prediction, is that somebody's going to get made an example of, especially in legal, because these lawyers that are buying these fake reviews, lawyers are governed by their state's rules of professional conduct, and this is clearly false and misleading advertising. It's clearly a violation of the rules of professional conduct. The FTC just came out with their rules on it. It's clearly a violation of the FTC rules, and people say, well, they can't enforce it because it's just too big of a problem. And I'm like, well, you know what? It's kind of like the IRS auditing tax returns. They only audit about 2% of the total returns. But those 2%, if you get caught, they drop the hammer on you because they want to scare everybody else away from it. And I think that storm's coming this year.
Exactly. Also, like the analogy I like to give is, if you speed every single time you drive, if you're driving twice the speed limit every time you drive, you probably won't get caught. I don't know, maybe the first 5 times, maybe the first 10 times. Dude, you're going to get caught eventually. So just do it right every single time.
Absolutely. And it just looks bad. I mean, it's a bad look. People can tell, they can tell. They're looking at the reviews and they can see that you're like, these reviewers, they're reviewing from all over the country and stuff. And you can just tell, like, these review networks, like they're so, and I know another good guy, if you haven't talked to him yet on the podcast, is Curtis Boyd at the Transparency Company. He's working really, really hard to try to, help law enforcement suss this out. But it is bad for the consumers. I mean, think about it, like you need a lawyer, you go and look online, you make a hiring decision based on a bunch of negative reviews. You could be getting the most unqualified lawyer based on these fake reviews. It is true consumer harm.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it starts with actually building a good business, right? Which we only have so much power to actually influence as the digital marketers. It's like, hey guys, make sure you're replying to your leads on time. Like, we can have a little consulting, but at the end of the day, I think it's important as an agency to actually take on good clients. So that kind of doesn't happen.
Yeah, you do your best, and it's hard because sometimes you won't realize it until after the fact, and then you've got to have a hard conversation when you start seeing your clients doing this kind of stuff. You mentioned the phone answering too. Like, to me, that is, and we used to back in the day, like we really cut our teeth on just SEO. Like that was really what our DNA was. But over the years, we've really evolved to like more business consulting because for that very reason, like we'd be showing traffic reports and we'd be showing ranking reports. And our clients would be like, well, this isn't turning into business for us. And then we'd implement something like CallRail and put some call tracking metrics in it. And all of a sudden it's like, well, yeah, you have a 50% answer rate. And it's like, nothing we can do is going to change that. Like, you got to fix that problem now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I see this all the time. And I think that is super big that not a lot of businesses focus on. And like, I'd say overall, just that conversion aspect. I think like digital marketing agencies like ours are actually fairly good at driving that visibility of it might be SEO or Google Ads or something similar. But in terms of conversions, I think that's where a lot of companies are actually struggling. So could you talk on that a little bit of like how to improve your conversions?
Yeah, I mean, for us, and I think this probably will resonate with a lot of other small business owners. Our lawyer clients, they're busy, especially if they're like a solo or small firm. Like they're practicing law, they can't be answering phone calls. We'll say, hey, you got to have 24-hour answering because people are calling hours a day. They're like, are you crazy? I can't answer the phone 24 hours a day. And so we'll help them navigate things like virtual receptionists. We'll help them navigate call tracking. But, to me, it's really about trying to help the business owner implement systems and software and technology and outsource support staff, that can help them improve conversion. Because at the end of the day, like you said, that's the number one thing. A million visitors aren't as valuable as one qualified consultation in legal. I mean, it's just every single time. And so, I push back on a lot of my competitors when they're showing all these traffic reports and ranking reports. And I'm like, this is all meaningless. Like, yes, in fairness, I shouldn't say it's meaningless. It has meaning. They're leading indicators of success. But marketing agencies should be accountable for helping their clients grow, and growth is conversion. And so conversion comes from great potential client customer experiences, great follow-up, great intake systems, great service. Those are the types of things that we talk a lot more about. That, if you'd asked me about in 2008, it wouldn't have been on my radar. I was thinking about, we got to get rankings, we got to get traffic. And it's really evolved over the last 17 years that, like, we really need to be a business partner to help the firm deliver on service, because marketing and service are totally intertwined. You really can't have one without the other.
Definitely. That's a really good statement. So how involved exactly is your company? Like, when you guys work with, some attorney company, what exactly does that look like? How involved are you in making sure that they're actually converting these leads into customers?
It's all over the map, but I will tell you, because some like I was saying earlier, some firms will come to us and they'll say, "Hey, look, we've got an in-house marketing team. We just need someone to kind of look over our shoulder." And so we'll try to help them build accountability systems. We'll connect CRM data with ads. That's another thing too that I tell people, especially if you're spending a lot of money on ads. You absolutely must connect your sales data to your marketing data. I'll tell you, this is one way to do it. There are simpler ways and less expensive ways, but we export everything into BigQuery, clean the data up from all the different sources, and then use that, for our clients' CRM data to inform our media buys. If you're buying Google Ads and you are not connecting it to your sales data, you are at a huge competitive disadvantage. You cannot rely on pixel fires. Do not feed Google pixel fires. They will optimize campaigns to total trash. Anyway, I'm ranting here. To get back on track, it's all over the map, and so some firms, they just want some consulting. They want us to kind of help them, get their data infrastructure in place. They want us to help them deliver reports, come up with strategy. Other firms, it's like we're deeply embedded with everything they do. We're listening to, feedback from clients. We're looking at, trying to help them with reviews. We're interviewing, stakeholders and clients and potential clients to get a sense of, like, what are the issues. And so it's really all over the map with depending on the needs. But that's kind of been our thing too. And it's a double-edged sword, because a lot of our competitors, they'll have, like, gold, silver, platinum package, and it's very systematized. It scales. It's very streamlined. And for a segment of the market, it works really well. But we're a little bit more on the custom side of things, because clients come to us with all sorts of different issues, and, like, we want to build a plan that really meets their needs, because we know long term that if we can't prove, and we do everything month to month, we don't do any long-term contracts. If they're not happy, they can leave anytime they want. And we say we've got to communicate the value of what we do every single month. And so it varies, because we prioritize the things that our clients find the most valuable. And ultimately, in legal, more often than not, it's qualified consultations, actual client signups. As leading indicators, maybe you've got qualified leads. But, if we were reporting on traffic and, links and, how many blog posts we're writing every month, we would be fired left and right, because that stuff doesn't actually, like, connect to the value for the business.
That's so true. Yeah. One of the first things I do whenever I go into a client's business and take them on as a client is make sure that the tracking is proper and in place. Make sure that we have a phone number for each place that we're getting leads. Make sure that it's actually working. Make sure that we have that the leads can actually convert, like the contact forms are working, the phone numbers are working, all those different things to show that we're actually delivering results. Because if you say you're an SEO agency, are a lead generation agency or a Facebook ads agency. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. At the end of the day, your job is to grow their business. So if you can't actually show that, then why should they keep you as an agency?
Well, good for you, because you're ahead of 90% of your competitors. So I applaud that. There are still, even today, doing this almost 20 years, we get people send us reports, and I look at these reports and I'm like, there is no insight, there's no analysis, there's no connection to like, is this actually valuable? And I'm empathetic too to some of my agency peers, because we said this before, small businesses, law firms, like they've got to do the work to qualify the lead. If they don't tell you, hey, this is a qualified lead, this is a consultation, this is actually a client, what are you going to do? Unless you're going to handle intake for them, you're never going to know. And so I'm sympathetic, but and if there are any small business owners listening, share your data and help your agency understand what's working for your business, because they're flying blind otherwise. Like, there's so many business owners that are so reluctant to be like, I don't want to share my marketing plan, I don't want to share my revenue goals. And I'm like, what do you want me to do? You want to hold me accountable for delivering value, but you don't want to share what your objectives are? Like, that's just counterproductive.
Yeah, exactly. Not just the call tracking, but also the CRM itself. And I think some companies are almost scared to share that, maybe because they see the revenue numbers. That's like, hey, well, I just made 100K this month. Why am I only getting paid 200K, or sorry, 2K as an agency? But no, there should be access to the CRM so we can see what's going on. I think that's what an agency should do. And by the way, it should be a trusted provider. It shouldn't just be some random person. It should be someone that you trust with your CRM. So all good stuff. I completely agree.
No, it's all about trust. At the end of the day, we talk about this all the time, because different businesses will have different objectives, and we're talking, maybe I'm like super hyper focused on like cost per case or cost per consultation. Some firms, like, their business metrics, they don't think about it like that. And so the thing I always tell people is, and agencies and clients alike, define what success is at the start. What is it that, if we're looking back 12 months from now, how can we both say this was super successful, be aligned on that, and then a lot of your issues will go away, because it's just going to be, can you align on those and deliver on that, or not? And then there's no, secrets or like surprises or like disappointment, because it's like you either did the thing you said you were going to do or you didn't.
Yeah, I love that. So how far out should you set goals? Should there be like 3 months, 6 month, 12 month, or is there one specific one we're trying to hit?
That's a great question. So I'm we run on EOS, which, if people read the book Traction, it's the entrepreneurial operating system. And so we use their planning framework. So they have a 10-year, I'm probably going to get the things wrong, but 10-year target, 3-year plan, and a 1-year annual plan. And then we look within a year, we look quarterly. So it's really, we're focused on a 90-day world. So you have to look at it all those different ways, because I'll give you an example in legal. If you're a lawyer that's coming there, you're at the end of your career, you're going to retire in a few years. Well, 10-year target is meaningless for you, right? You're looking at 3-year plan. Maybe you want to sell your business. Maybe you want to sell your firm. Maybe you want to do that in 5 years. Okay, so then you need a 5-year plan, a 3-year plan, a 1-year plan, and then 90-day world. But I would say this, like, it's alignment on expectations over those different time periods. And I'll give you, and I think you might be alluding to this, but like, if you're brand new and you're like, I want to buy SEO from you, and I tell you, I'm like, you're in legal, you're in one of the most competitive online spaces there is. Top 5. I don't know anything anybody would fight that it's top 5. And your expectations about being able to get a return on your investment or to hit a target cost per, it's going to take some time. And that's why I also tell people, diversify your marketing. Don't put all your eggs in a single channel basket. People come to us all the time. They're like, I want SEO. I'm like, do you really? Or do you need the phone ringing like next month? Because SEO is probably not going to do that. And people that are making promises to you about that, they just told you they're not trustworthy. In my opinion, you see these over and over again. Agencies will lock people into like 3-year agreements, and they'll be like, I'll talk to you in 3 years. And I'm like, there is no accountability there. This is wild. Like, don't do that. So anyway, sorry, I'm ranting again, but I think you got to look at your business plans over long range and long-term goals. And those are going to be more like, you talk about brand building. Like, brand building takes a long time. but you should be doing that on day one. Start planting those seeds now. And then, and also having short-term goals as well, so that you can be like, all right, I'm keeping the lights on today because I need customers, clients next month. And we've got a plan to do that too, but it's not going to be maybe in this channel, it's going to be something else.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. And from that angle, as long as you are hitting the targets that you and your client agree on, then I mean, why would they ever cancel on you? Why would they ever churn? Like that almost seems like the secret to the agency model.
Yeah, and the hard part is like you got to deliver on that, and especially when you're talking about organic, like it's tough. Because as much as you can have the best idea for a campaign, and it might just not take off. It happens. But the thing that I keep saying is like, if you've got, it's not just like those value metrics are really important. You got to be aligned on those. But you also, as an agency, you need to show those short-term leading indicators. So if you're showing growth, like if you're showing growth in relevant traffic, if you're showing growth in relevant qualified leads, those things start to come in, even if they're not quite hitting the exact numbers that you are trying to hit from a return on investment or a return on ad spend standpoint. If they see you're moving in the right direction, you're keeping the lines of communication open, that's another thing too. Overly communicate with your clients, because they want to know, like, are we going in the right direction? A lot of we're sending them reports that are like, I can't make heads or tails out of this. Keep them informed, communicate that value every single month. It might not be the objective metric that you're trying to get to, but show them those leading indicators, show them that growth, and tell them what you're doing to improve, and that'll make them more sticky with you too.
Awesome. So what is a good communication flow? Like, should it be almost random, or should there be like something weekly and then something monthly? How do you guys do it?
So again, I'm Traction, so we're Cadence. We do, we'll have an annual. Here's the ideal, and I say that I'm putting an asterisk here because some of our clients don't want to operate on this cadence, and so I go back to build a plan, build a cadence, communication cadence that your client wants. Some of our clients, they want weekly, quote unquote, level 10 meetings. Status, what's going on this week? What do we do? What did we do last week? What are we doing this week? Now, keep in mind, if you're building a plan that's weekly, monthly, quarterly communication, you better price in that you're going to be talking to them every week. And so that's what I always say. I'm like, look, the more resources, it's just like you, lawyer, the more resources that you demand from us, the more I've got to charge you to do it, and the more value we have to deliver for you to be happy with the result. Like, those things all have to be working harmoniously. But I think, again, if you really twisted my arm and like what works best, I'm big on you build an annual plan, you execute a quarterly 90-day strategy, review 90 days, build a new plan, and kind of cyclically like that. But, in terms of like check-ins, like I tell people all the time, I'm like, we should be proactively trying to check in with clients who want it on a weekly basis. You're not going to be, doing huge strategy revisions one week to the next, but sometimes it's nice for a high touch client that really wants to know like what's going on. You can do a weekly status call. The other thing I always tell too is, record your calls. Let people consume those meetings and those insights and analysis asynchronously. If they want a real-time meetings are for back and forth. If you're just reporting the news, you don't need to schedule a call for that. You can deliver a report with a Loom video or a Zoom, whatever you want, and let them consume it when they've got time. Because these small businesses, they're busy. They're really busy. They might not be able to meet. They might be doing this kind of stuff after hours, like 8 o'clock at night. Let them be able to access that information when it works for them.
Yeah, I've actually seen that work really well, and clients have been liking that. Is just sending a Loom video every week instead of maybe it's a weekly meeting. That's kind of the hybrid between the weekly meeting and the weekly email, is that they can still watch the video if they want. Sometimes they never watch it, maybe 50% of the time. But just even the fact that the video is there, and every time they get even a little bit skeptical, they can go and check the video and be like, oh, okay, everything's good. Why was I even worrying?
100%.
So I think that's definitely a good point.
The other thing that I always say is dashboards over reports. Clients should be able to access their data anytime they want. They shouldn't have to wait for you to email them a PDF of their report of what's going on. The reporting function is not to deliver information. It's to talk about what you did, why it was valuable, what you're doing next to improve those metrics. That's the insights and analysis report. People don't need you to pull up Google Analytics. They can do that themselves, right? Create dashboards that have meaning, that are connected to CRM, that talk about business metrics, and then report on the actual insights and analysis of the campaign, not just, they don't need you to read, you got this many visitors last month. Like, who cares? That's not helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's also important to note that there should be an expert like me or you or whatever, so someone on the team analyzing the report, because I feel like they've gotten a million reports or audits or all these kinds of things that they're kind of drowning in data in a sense, and they need someone to break it down very clearly. It's like, okay, hey, these are the stats that matter. Okay, maybe these things they're kind of just indicators. We don't really have to look at those. Okay, these really matter. How are these doing? Okay, but we've improved 10% this month. I think that's really important as well.
100%. And to that point, it's finding those bottlenecks. What your real value is to show them their blind spots. Like, a lot of these small business owners, they might not even realize that people are trying to call them and they're not answering the phone. I mean, imagine the value you add to a business that's already getting phone calls, but it's just not answering the phone, and you help them answer, 25, 30% more of the phone calls. That's real money that's coming into their business, and they will be like, you're the best thing since sliced bread, because they're going to feel that tangibly in their P&L.
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of want to, it seems like you have a really well-run agency, and you've been running it for 17 years. I'm sure you've honed this over the years. I want to take a look under the hood, and so tell me about something like your onboarding process. What does that look like?
Yeah, so I'll take it back all the way to when someone reaches out to us. We do an exploratory call that's really like, tell us about your business, tell us about your objectives. And you really start to get a sense of like where they are in their business journey, how sophisticated they are. And that helps us go down different paths. And, sometimes people will come to us and they'll say, look, I've been listening to the podcast. You guys sound like you know what you're talking about, but I've got $500 to spend. And I'll be like, you don't need an agency. You don't need Google ads. You don't need SEO. I'm like, go out in your local community and start taking people to dinner, take people to coffee, go meet other business owners, go meet other professionals. That's going to be the best way you can spend that money. Now, on the other hand, you get super sophisticated, which is, more in our ideal client persona. They've already got data. So we're like, data dump. We'll do requests for information. We're like, you got to give us access to your ad accounts, analytics, Search Console data, CRM data. The more data, this is the other thing too, I tell people all the time, the more data that you give us, the more reliable of a forecast we'll be able to put together for you. And then it's going to be, and we're going to have a high level of confidence. If you don't give us any of that stuff, we can model it. We can use third-party tools. We can do competitive analysis. We can look at all the stuff that we can look at some historicals of similarly situated clients, but it will not be as effective and as reliable as your data. And so usually that comes in, it's like a 30-day process for us to really like download everything. And in fact, we get a lot of one of the things that's an expectation issue because it's different in the market. A lot of people, they'll sign them up same day. And people are surprised when they're like, it's going to take you 30 days to actually like do this. And we're like, yeah, you've got a lot of data and we want to give you a reliable forecast, and we don't want to like, blow smoke here and like be able to tell you something that's actually got value for you. It takes some time for us to do that. But usually within the first, 30, 60 days, we've got a good, what we would call like a pro forma or a forecast. And then those first 60 days is really about strategy build. So we build strategies typically like on a 90-day basis, so that we're like, these are the campaigns we're running this quarter. These are the strategies we're executing this quarter, and then we'll go back and review that. Similar to like the EOS model. But that onboarding process, it's overly communicating. It's benchmarking. Where are you? How much traffic? We'll look at historical traffic numbers. Ideally, we're looking at historical lead numbers, call volume, client signups. Like, we want to go deep on the CRM. But there's a big research and exploration phase that starts at the beginning, and then we get a little bit more just kind of like a regular cadence of like quarterly execution, reviewing plans, and that kind of thing.
Okay, cool. And in the legal space, what typically works best for lead generation? Like, what are people usually getting the most leads from?
That's a great question too. I would say that I'm going to break this into kind of two big buckets. There's the brand builders, right? These are the guys that, they've got TV, they've got offline media buys. People are going right to them. And that's it's still really effective today. If you're an unsophisticated legal services consumer, You don't know any lawyers. You don't have lawyers in your family. A lot of times, people get in a car accident. They go to the hospital. Family members like, this is messed up. They got to call somebody. Whose name comes to mind? You know, maybe it's someone they saw on a billboard. Maybe it's someone they saw on TV ad. And that stuff is still very effective. It's very expensive, and it takes a lot of time to build up. You know, then you go to the other end of the spectrum. You've got the, you know, non-brand, call it direct response style, whether it's, you know, Google ads or LSAs or organic and local packs. And, you know, look, in that space, in my view, Google is still king. People can say, you know, social media to me is brand. I mean, if you're doing direct response on social media and having consistent success with it, I know there's a couple firms that are, if people want to go check out, and there's, you know, there's kind of this gray area too, because there's some firms that are like doing brand and direct response on social, but that's kind of its own thing. Search has intent. It always has. People are there to go find the, you know, those lower funnel, head term, business type lookup searches. That stuff kills. I mean, if you can get your local services ads to spend, that is the premier real estate. I mean, you got high intent, you're paying per lead. If you're working those leads, that to me is still the place to be. Now, I think the hard part is sometimes, you know, people complain it's hard to get them to spend. We don't have that much control over them. That's a whole thing. But, you know, and we're undergoing probably, and, you know, since I've been doing this, the biggest tectonic shift in what's going on because of AI. And I'll tell you too, people, make sure you have got qualitative attribution going on at your business. Ask people how they found you. Do not rely solely on Google Analytics and pixel fires, because I will tell you from experience, people will put in, how did you hear about us? I found you on ChatGPT. I found you on, you know, whatever it is. That's coming. And so again, I'm saying Google still right now today, but a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, this could be the first time in 20 years that I might not be saying that.
Yeah, no, it is pretty crazy. I was actually talking with this other agency to see if they would potentially work with me, and they asked me how I found them. I was like, "Hi, I found you through ChatGPT. That's kind of weird." Like I asked ChatGPT, I found them there. So that's definitely a meta, and that's something to consider as well. And that's something that's really hasn't even been broken into. And I think just in the past few months or so, they've started to include almost like a map embed, and I believe they take it from the Apple Maps data. So could you tell me like more about that and where that's going?
Yeah, so that's what I tell people are like, you know, how do I get ahead of this thing? And I'm like, go for your, you know, types of target, you know, same type of target queries. And by the way, this is a really important point. People don't interface with ChatGPT the same way they do search. And so if you take your target query list and take it over to ChatGPT, those might not be the ways that people are actually looking for you in ChatGPT. But I would say figure out, you know, and maybe you survey potential clients, ask friends and family, ask people in your local community, like, hey, if you were going to go look for X business on ChatGPT, what would you type in? And then go and see what ChatGPT is using as the source data. In legal, I will tell you it's heavy on legal directories. There are some law firm websites that, you know, I think a lot of the studies, I think it's SE Ranking has a lot of great research and studies on ChatGPT and Gen AI sources across a bunch of categories. But in legal, there's a high correlation between legal directories, and if you rank organically, not in the local pack, but in the traditional organic results, seems to be a strong correlation to showing up in the GPT results. But I will tell you, it changes all the time. It's all over the map. It still gets it wrong. You know, people really like look down at ChatGPT, but this stuff it gets better so much faster. And I wouldn't count it out of the race. And already consumers, because it's more of a conversational dynamic, you know, it's more Star Trek computer, people are gravitating there. They like that experience. They like to be able to refine queries. They like to be able to ask follow-up questions. And in Google, you know, for a variety of reasons, I could tell you all the reasons I think, but for a variety of reasons, they're not quite there yet. And, you know, I think they're losing some market share, but Google is still king. Like people that are talking about the demise of Google, like it's a little bit premature. They've got data wins right now, even in the generative AI landscape, and they're number one. I don't care what anybody else says.
Yeah, no, I do agree. And I think there's two aspects regarding local in terms of why Google will still persist, at least for, I don't know, at least the next 10 years or so, is that number one, at least for like home services, because I'm mostly in home services and specifically pest control, that pest control owners are working with homeowners, and homeowners are typically older, which means they're typically using Google, whereas maybe younger people are using ChatGPT. And the second point is that Google Business Profile dominates local. Like everyone, this has kind of been instilled in everyone's minds, and a lot of people don't even know that it's even called Google Business Profile. But you kind of instinctively know, like when you're in a new area and you're looking for a restaurant, you go on Google, you search restaurant near me, you see the restaurant list. You've seen it like for your whole life, basically. That's like all you know of. Okay, this restaurant has 1,600 reviews. This one has 500 reviews. Whereas ChatGPT, that it almost feels like a completely different function. Where now, I don't know, maybe you're, I don't know, asking about like more almost conversational questions. Whereas this is like, no, I want to find a local business, which, you know, it still could be used for ChatGPT, but I think Google is still going to persist in local for at least, you know, the next 10 years or so. I think we're safe.
100%. And the answer, you said this, ChatGPT is relying on other map products. They don't have a map product.
Yeah.
So if they want to show local business listings, they either got to pull Apple or Google, and they don't want to contribute to more Google, and so they don't use Google. And interestingly, even Gemini, which is Google's generative AI tool, it pulls Google Maps data. So that local map data, that is the most valuable thing in the
Yeah.
local space. Like that is going to be a tough obstacle for competitors to overcome. I mean, think about it. These little cars are driving around mapping the whole world.
Yeah.
Is OpenAI doing that? I haven't seen any
No.
OpenAI cars on my street.
No. That's what's called like a blue ocean, where it's basically like impossible to beat. Like Google's just got such a head up on the competition in terms of data specifically, like you said. So having all that geo data, having Google Business Profile, like I don't think the local space is really going to go anywhere. That like now really thinking about it.
The biggest interesting thing that could potentially be we'll see how it plays out, is this antitrust ruling. Because if they break it up, if they and I don't think I don't think Maps is going to be separated from search, but some of these other products might be. If they separate ads from search, how are they going to monetize Maps? And if they make them share data, that could be a thing, because then you're forcing them to share their local data, which again, we'll see how it all plays out. That's the only, I think, risk. But otherwise, they've got the best local data. I mean, and then Apple Maps has come a long way, but it is silly to compare Apple Maps to where Google is right now. I mean, you compare place by place, like Google local data, that is to me, that's one of their most valuable products.
Yeah, I agree. And same way with Bing Maps or anything else. I don't think anything even compares to Google. So cool. And what do you see specifically for this year? Because things are really moving so fast. I don't even think it's necessarily smart to go 5 years. What do you think is going to happen this year? What's coming for 2025 in terms of AI, ChatGPT, SEO, all that stuff?
Yeah, I think the big thing that's been on my mind is that I always try to think of like where the platforms are trying to move. And Google in particular, they're going to be. I foresee them trying to add more of these social type results. What people are saying. Obviously they own you. That's the other thing too. It's like, get on YouTube, folks. YouTube is owned by Google. If your customers are using Google, they're going to be shown YouTube, especially in like the how-to space and the educational space. Like, and you think about home services, like people start out being like, I'm going to do this myself, until they realize, like, they watch a video and they're like, I can't do this myself. I'm going to go hire somebody, right? And so, I think more video content in search results, more social content in search results. Google knows that some of these social platforms are starting to take some of their attention away. They're going to be including that more. I'm hopeful, like I said before, I'm hopeful that we'll see a crackdown on some of these fake reviews, because especially in legal, it is such a mess. I mean, we tell lawyers all the time, we're like, you cannot compete like this. We know this competitor's cheating. Nobody's enforcing it. If you can't come up with a competitive number of reviews, like, forget about it. It shouldn't be a top priority for you. In terms of AI, I mean, I think we're going to see a lot more. It's going to get a lot better, faster. I think we're going to see more people gravitating towards using it. Again, even us, like, because we live we eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff. A lot of people, you go out on the street and ask them, like, do you use ChatGPT? And they're like, huh? I think you're going to start to see more of that changing even this year. But again, I think that I'm always like into like the more things change, the more they stay the same. The businesses that deliver great experiences, that can get customers and clients to sing their praises online, to leave reviews, to leave video testimonials, that partner, I love these co-marketed videos where, like, and we see lawyers do this all the time, where they're like, they'll be like, hey, they'll go to a local restaurant tour and they'll say, hey, I want to interview you, whether it's, video or podcast or whatever. We're going to have a contest and we're going to buy somebody dinner at the restaurant. You put that on social. Like, that's the stuff that people love. They want that. It supports the local community. It supports small business. Those are the businesses that are going to win. I don't care what the platforms do. It's that, Will Reynolds coined this a long time ago, real company stuff. Do that real company stuff, deliver real service, deliver remarkable experiences. Go read Unreasonable Hospitality. Find ways to make your customers and clients be like, wow, that was amazing. You will win regardless of what the future holds.
Wow. Okay, that was an awesome answer. Thank you for that, man. I think a lot of people might actually have to rewind and listen to that back. I think there's a lot of good nuggets in there.
I drank a lot of coffee today.
Yeah. I actually just got back onto coffee, so I'm feeling pretty energized myself. So cool. So again, there are a lot of different things to touch on there. First, I'll start out with the social media aspect. Are you doing anything specifically for social media with clients? Are you more so consulting, or what's the position there?
Mostly consulting, but we manage paid social advertising, and that's another thing too, especially in legal. I don't know if you're a local business. We talked about referrals, and people, small business owners, they tend to separate these referrals from direct response, and I'm like, huge mistake. LinkedIn campaign, local LinkedIn campaigns, because LinkedIn targeting is amazing. So you can target other business professionals on LinkedIn and in your local community, and you're not doing your direct response ads. You're not like, hey, I need a lawyer, free consultation, but you're like, here's some charity work I've been doing in the local community. Here's the local restaurants that I'm helping support. You get that content in front of people, people will remember you. And when they need, because legal is an on-demand, it's like, you don't need a car accident lawyer until you're in a car accident, but they'll be thinking of you because they're thinking of the people that are supporting the local community, that are active in the local community, they're leaders in the local community. That's the stuff that sticks in people's heads.
Definitely. No, it's the same thing with pest control. So I'm glad there's actually that correlation there, that it's usually on demand. Like, people might see Facebook ads of pest control. I don't know, maybe a few leads will come in, but usually it's more of building that brand recognition of, now they know the company. Now when they have a spider infestation, oh my God, there's bed bugs all over my bed. Okay, now because I've seen all the Facebook ads, maybe I saw the billboard, maybe I saw the commercial, now I'm going to choose that company. So yeah, that does make complete sense. I really like that angle. And actually, I don't hear many people talking about LinkedIn advertising. So is that, like, kind of talk to me about the distribution of social media advertising? Is it, I mean, you talked about LinkedIn. Are you doing other platforms as well?
We are. And, the reason I brought up LinkedIn is because the professional referral is huge in legal. So, because, again, it all starts with your target audience. And so people in a local community, they don't know a lawyer, but maybe they have an accountant, or maybe they have a psychologist, a therapist, or maybe they've got, somebody else. Maybe they know like a local restaurant person. It's you're marketing to those business people on LinkedIn, who tend to be more on LinkedIn, right? But if you're trying to target just like local community stuff, like, yeah, you're and LinkedIn has all like the business targeting. But we'll buy media on Meta, we buy media on TikTok, we buy media on Instagram. To me, the big thing, and this is like marketing 101 stuff, it's more important to stand out than anything else. We see lawyers all the time, they're like copying all these other lawyer ads. It's like, car exploding, like, I fight hard, I've been doing this 1,000 years. Like, everybody's saying the same thing. That is the opposite of marketing. You have to stand out. And so I would rather if you're going to stand out for something in your local community, because that's the thing that appeals to everybody. Like, who's going to be like, I hate local businesses, I hate my local community, I hate the local high school? Like, no,
Yeah.
Like, this is your community. Like, appeal, that appeals, that's going to maximize appeal.
Yeah, 100%. And also kind of like commonly known in the advertising space is that it's all about relevance, right? And really actually SEO too. Like Google's going to show the most relevant, helpful results. So the same way with local ads is that if you make an ad, like let's say, I'm in Chicago, if I push an ad to just people in Chicago, or that's a pretty big city. Maybe you do it a smaller city, but you get the point. If you push that ad to people in the area, that's immediate relevance. Like, hey, are you a homeowner in Chicago? Hey, are you a business owner in Chicago? That's immediate relevance. Like, if someone calls out my small city, I live in like a pretty small town on the outskirts of Chicago with like a few thousand people. If someone called out my town in an ad, I'd be like, hold up, I would probably watch it and listen to the whole thing because there is that relevance there, and it almost feels like you're getting tracked down a little bit. I feel like most people aren't taking advantage of that.
Well, you make a really important point, especially in local, especially in organic local, but really local in general, and that's proximity matters to people. And I'll tell you, I lived in Chicago for 15 years. Love Chicago, by the way. I lived in River North. And when I would need, like, I remember I needed a locksmith one time. I was looking for people that were advertising in River North, not Chicagoland.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to get somebody that was up in like the, way, because 3 miles in Chicago could be like an hour away. I was looking for proximity. And so businesses that optimized around my neighborhood, around the intersections, if I saw River North, it made, and the office and the location, it made such a big difference. And that's another thing too we talk about a lot in legal is if you're like on the more like mature end of your business journey, you've got to think about opening multiple locations. Like, it is impossible to be the local business for everybody, especially in the local pack, if you are not in proximity to where your customers are. It's too hard. Google wants to show local results, and they want to show that because local consumers want local businesses. They don't want, I'm in outside Detroit. I'm looking for people that are close to me. I'm not looking for people that are, an hour, 2 hours away when I need something as a local consumer.
Yeah, definitely. And something I'd like to hammer home for Google Business Profile, because I've talked to numerous pest control owners in particular, and they just don't know this, which is kind of just like a simple thing people should know, is that the city that your Google Business Profile is placed in, that is going to be pretty much the only area that it's ranking in. So if you have a Google Business Profile in Chicago, it is not going to rank in other cities. Or again, like we'll use like a smaller city, like let's say I'm in Glenview. It is not going to rank outside of Glenview. So make sure that you're placing it in the right city, and don't expect leads to come from outside of the city, because that's a huge point, is where is it actually located? Whatever it says on the Google Business Profile, like, okay, this company is located in Glenview, Illinois. And okay, you will show up in pretty much all the Glenview results. But if you are in just the next town over, like let's say Evanston or Winnetka, you're probably not going to be showing up in results, especially with those specific keyword searches of, pest control Glenview, pest control Winnetka. If people are also putting that city geo modifier in, which is huge, or, with pest control near me, whatever, all those locally relevant searches, you are almost 100% not going to show up if you are not placed in the city that you want to rank it.
100%. And in legal, especially if you're in a competitive city, it's even worse. You'll get a different set of results. I used to do videos of me walking down the street in Chicago and just doing the same search. And it was like different firms every couple blocks, because it is proximity to where you are. And that's the thing. That's one of those places where an expert, a local SEO expert, is so valuable, because they can help you plan to decide where to open locations, because they should be taking in consideration what's the competition level there. What other businesses are you going to be competing with in terms of reviews? How authoritative are those sites? Because you might say, hey, look, based on the demographic information of my community, based on my competition level, it makes me a lot more sense for me to open a business in this other city than to try to double down on this more competitive city in the downtown area.
Yeah, no, that's huge. Strategically placing the Google Business Profile. Ideally, you should have some kind of SEO. Maybe they're in-house, maybe they're an agency, maybe they're a consultant. Just someone that you can talk to and just be like, "Hey, is this location? Is this a good location?" Or, "Hey, could you just help out a little bit?" Placing it is actually a big part of ranking. So I'm glad you touched on that as well.
No, it's huge, especially if you're going to enter into like a 10-year office lease. Like we get lawyers all the time. They're like, hey, tell me about my competitive landscape. And I'm like, you're in a super competitive landscape. If you just moved one city over, you'd be showing up for everything. And they're like, all right, great. I'll talk to you in 10 years after my lease is up.
Yeah, exactly. So a question I get, I don't know, kind of often, at least regarding this topic, is when is the right time to expand? So some business owners are now starting to realize this and understand it, that you should have multiple Google Business Profiles if you have some built up. What do you think is kind of the right time to open up a new one? So like I had a recent prospect that had 2,000 reviews on a Google Business Profile and they only have one. So I think like you should probably start to move on to other Google Business Profiles, right?
Yeah, it's a very complex question because it really, I go back to those big planning things. Like what are you trying to do? Like, are you, do you want to grow? Do you want to add more team members? Like, is that you're trying to scale your business like that? Are you happy with where you are? Because the other side of the coin is that if you're going to open another location, now in your example, maybe it's no problem because they've got, seemingly limitless reviews, but you got to go market that location. You got to go get reviews at that location. You got to optimize content for that location. All those things you did to help you rank in your existing location, you got to go replicate that. Now, if your plan, you got an ambitious plan, big growth, that might be a great idea, and maybe it's long overdue for you to do that. The other thing to keep in mind is that sometimes we'll see firms, and we did a thing on Lunch Hour Legal Marketing about this. The firm, they didn't think about SEO at all when they opened their business. And they're in a downtown area, competitive, but they're a smaller firm. They get a handful of reviews every year. The other firms in that downtown, they're scaling. They've got, they're buying fake reviews. They've got hundreds, thousands of reviews. And we're like, man, I don't care what your 10-year plan is. You should go open outside of the local area in a less competitive market today, because it's going to be a lot easier for you to show up and earn visibility and drive business today, even though you might want to do the major local area 10 years from now. Go move there now, because that's going to keep the lights on and help you meet your goal in the major market.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, awesome. Yeah, to kind of like wrap this up and circle back, I'd like to talk more about your agency and, where's your agency at right now, and what is your 10-year plan?
So we're fully distributed. We keep an office in downtown Chicago, but we've got team members all over the place. We're fully remote even before COVID, which again, my viewpoint is like, I don't care when you work or where you work. Like, we want the best people on our team. And, the other thing that I've learned over the years is like people's phases of life change. They start families, like they want to move, maybe they want to move back home. So we're fully distributed in terms of that. We're actively, we also offer exclusivity. So we won't work with two firms in the same practice area right near each other. We define it in different ways. Like sometimes it's defined on a city basis, sometimes on a county basis. Some firms want like bigger geographic exclusivity. And I say that just because it kind of, it limits our ability to scale. Like we've got competitors in the space. They'll work with 30 firms in the same location. But if you're asking me 10 years, like, the metrics that we really focus are on retention, lifetime value of clients, clients singing happy praises. We do a regular client surveying in terms of trying to get them. So one of our, for our 10-year target is to have, I'll be honest with you, off the top of my head, it's I think it's like 80% as a promoter or something like that from an MPS standpoint. But we're really focused on delivering results. I mean, again, we want to talk to the law firm and say, hey, what are you trying to do? Here's our plan to go achieve that. And some firms, they'll say, hey, look, I really only need like a project. I want you to get our data infrastructure implemented. That's a project based, not an ongoing thing. And so I say all this because a lot of the agency metrics of like long-term retention, it's kind of all over the map, but Ideally, we try to be at 80% retained clients every year. So, and clients leave for a variety of reasons. Some they leave because we didn't hit the objective that we thought we could hit. Some leave because they want to change strategy. Some people, the big thing right now in legal is people want to build their own in-house teams. And I'm always like, that's great. We love working with in-house teams. Just make sure you're comparing apples to apples. Like, you're not going to get one person who's an expert across all these different channels. It's going to be able to manage media, create content, do social and all this stuff. I'm ranting again, but we're very focused on just like, what is your objective metric? What are you trying to achieve? Let's go deliver that. Let's find clients that are aligned on our values, that think like that too. And that's it. I mean, that's basically, that's the end of my 10-year target. I'm not planning on selling. I'm not going to retire. I like doing this right now. And lawyers are my people. I'm still a licensed lawyer. And so the thing that gets me out of bed is like when I get messages from people that are like, we're opening a new office location, we're hiring more lawyers, like, thank you so much. Like, that's the stuff that really motivates us at AttorneySync.
Awesome, man. And last question I have for you is, what is one of the biggest lessons you've learned in the past few years?
I'm big. I talked about this earlier, but like the E-Myth stuff, like someone asked me this actually on a recent podcast, and I was reflecting on it. And, a lot of agency people, like we were talking about, you go from subject matter expertise in an area to becoming an agency founder. And the sooner that you realize that your subject matter expertise is super valuable in terms of understanding your customer and understanding your client, but you've got to carve out time to work on your business. Just like we tell our clients, it's all that other stuff. You got to spend time learning about a P&L. You got to understand about profitability. You got to understand about workload balancing and capacity and all that kind of stuff. And that I think I still do today. I think SEO is so cool. Like, how cool is it? You can do something, show up in Google, and people start coming to your website and buying and hiring from you. I think that's the coolest thing. But if you just focus on that, you're a one-trick pony. You're better being just a consultant or a practitioner than an actual business owner. I think if I'd figured that out a little bit sooner, I'd probably be a little bit further ahead. But making that jump from working in the business to on the business, the faster you can do that, the more effective and the more success your business will have.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. And to kind of, I don't know, to my point, I've been mainly an SEO guy, and now I've been starting to provide Google ads, and now like some social media marketing and kind of more full service. I think that is how you have to do it. So
yeah, I think diversifying strategy makes a ton of sense. And especially if you're already vertically positioned. So, if you're already in one category, if you can offer marketing services across horizontally, like, it'll be a much more effective way to go about it.
Yeah, it just makes sense. And everything kind of powers up each other, right? And you also don't want to almost force your clients to then have several agencies. I think that's usually nightmare scenario, where now they have a different agency for every single service. Now one's falling through, you have 5 different dashboards. It's like a whole different mess. So ideally, a company is just working with one trusted agency. I think that's the right way to go.
Yeah, and I would say this, if you're going to have more than one, it's absolutely imperative that they're talking to each other. Because like you said, I mean, this stuff all works, like an integrated approach works the best. If you have siloed agency partners, you are just leaving money on the table.
Cool, man. Awesome. Well, I think that was a great podcast. I think we covered a ton. I don't know if it was the coffee, but I think we covered a ton of topics. I think that was super helpful, and I haven't really covered many of these topics before. So I think this was an awesome podcast. And Gyi, where can people find you, learn more about you, and your services?
Well, fortunately for me, you can just search on my very unique name. Just start typing GYITSAK. But you can also just go to AttorneySync.com, AttorneySync.com. Like I said, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, and I love talking shop, and we do the podcast. You can check out Lunch Hour Legal Marketing, but I'm kind of all over the place. But if you're a small business owner, you got questions, I am happy to help in any way that I possibly can.
Awesome. So I'll leave those links in the description. Anything else you'd like to plug?
No, that's it. Thanks so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it was a great podcast, and it was great. So thanks for coming on. I appreciate your time, and we'll stay in touch.
Sounds good, Danny.
Okay. Bye. Thanks.
Bye.